Welcome to Lead with Clarity. This is a space for leaders who want to grow without losing themselves in the process. Each episode is a short reflection on leadership, influence, and the inner work that shapes how we show up for others. It's not hype, not noise, just clear thinking for the journey of leading well. Today's episode is entitled Responsibility, Accountability, Ownership, the chain Pat Summitt built every culture on. Here we go. There's a word that shows up in every leadership conversation I've ever had: accountability. Everyone says they want it. Very few organizations actually have it. And I'd argue the reason isn't motivation or intention, it's architecture. Leaders haven't built the structure that makes real accountability possible. Today I want to talk about why and about 3 words that will clarify everything. Pat Summitt, one of the most decorated coaches in the history of college sports, said something simple that I keep coming back to. She said, responsibility equals accountability equals ownership. 8 words, enormous implications. Summitt wasn't coaching basketball when she said that. She was describing a philosophy of human development. She spent decades taking young women and turning them into people who performed under pressure, led under adversity, and carried their values beyond the court. That kind of result does not come from rules. It comes from this chain. Think about the last time your team dropped the ball on something. And I don't mean catastrophically. I mean the quiet kind of miss. The deadline that slipped, the handoff that fell through the cracks, the deliverable that wasn't quite what anyone expected. Now ask yourself, where did the chain break? Was responsibility even clearly assigned in the first place? Did the person receiving it fully understand what they were accountable for and to whom? And was there any real sense of ownership, the kind where someone is proactively monitoring, adjusting, and closing gaps without being asked? Most of the time, the breakdown isn't a people problem. It's a clarity problem. Someone took on the task. Nobody followed through on the accountability conversation, and ownership never really formed. Here's where I see leaders go wrong with this quote. They read it as a sequence and they front load it. They think, assign responsibility first, then hold people accountable after. And if the result is bad enough, label it an ownership issue and move on. That's backwards. Accountability isn't a consequence you apply after the fact. It's a conversation you initiate before the work begins. It's agreement. It's specificity. It's the moment where you and another person look each other in the eye and both understand what success looks like, what the timeline is, and what happens if something gets in the way. Without that conversation, you haven't created accountability. You've just created expectation without infrastructure. The way I've come to think about this chain is developmental, not sequential. Responsibility is the entry point. It's where you invite someone into ownership of an outcome. Accountability is the relationship you build around that outcome. It's ongoing, two-directional, and it requires the leader to show up, not just show up when something goes wrong. Ownership is what forms when responsibility is clear and accountability is consistent. It's not something you demand. It's something that develops when the environment makes it safe to own things, including outcomes that don't go perfectly. Summit's teams won because her players owned their development. They didn't wait for a coach to tell them what to fix. They knew what the standard was. They had built a relationship with accountability, and ownership was the natural result. So I want you to leave with one question this week. Pick one initiative, one project, one relationship on your team, and ask yourself honestly, have I been clear about responsibility? Have I built a real accountability structure around it, not just assumed it? And is there an environment where ownership can actually form? If the answer to any of those is no, that's your starting point. Not a conversation about effort or attitude, a conversation about the chain. Leadership at the highest level is about building environments where ownership is not the exception. It's the expectation. Summitt knew that. The leaders I respect most know that. The best teams I've seen operate with a collective sense of ownership that doesn't have to be managed or mandated. That starts with you. Model the chain. Make responsibility explicit. Build accountability as a practice, not a reaction. And trust that ownership will follow. Responsibility, accountability, ownership, in that order, every time.